Someone just dismissed your idea, a colleague said something in a meeting that rubs up against your values, or you feel like a problem is going round and round in circles and it's not being resolved. You can feel your heart racing, you're getting really agitated, and every instinct is telling you to fight back or to stay silent. But here's the thing, we experience differences every day. We experience it in most conversations. And how you handle the emotions of being disagreed with will literally change the course of your life. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can turn differences into a productive outcome for everyone. Now, many people handle disagreements defensively. You want to prove them wrong, you want to prove you're right, or you just go inwards. That sense of silence just feels like it's less effort rather than speaking up. So you withdraw. And I get it. When there's some type of conflict, it's quite hard to know how to deal with it. We've never really been taught this skill. But here's what's really happening in this defensiveness. Your brain's threat detection system is going haywire. Your amygdala is flooding your system with stress hormones, and you're literally not thinking clearly. And the result, nobody's getting the benefit, trust is getting eroded, time is getting wasted, and performance is literally on the decline as this is happening. Now, I'm Dean Leake. I'm a high-performing team specialist and an international speaker. I've worked with gold medal Olympic winning teams. I've delivered change programs for FTSE 100 companies, and I've been mentored by world-leading experts. People like Professor Steve Peters, a psychiatrist, the head of the Special Forces, and a world-leading hostage negotiator. And I'd love to share with you 5 things from my experience that you can do to learn how to be disagreed with more effectively. So strategy number 1, master the pause. I always say, take a step back before you take a step in. So when someone disagrees with you, your first instinct is to react immediately. And I want you to avoid this. Instead, I want you to press the pause button and let your breath speak first. Let your breath be your first words. And that creates space between what's being said and your response. And this is neuroscience. That pause button allows the prefrontal cortex, where we think rationally, time to get back online and override your emotional response. And then here's what I want you to say. Say something like, that's a really interesting perspective. Tell me more about that. So why does this matter? What you've done is you've bought yourself time to think, but you've made them feel heard. And that phrase in itself completely changes the dynamic from feeling confrontational to connecting. So I want you to think every time when you feel like you're being disagreed with, connect to yourself first, connection before correction. Strategy number 2, this is the mirror technique. So this is where you reflect back what's been said before you respond. So what you're doing is instead of jumping straight into your counter argument, you're saying something like, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you're concerned that this approach might not work because, and then you summarize your point. So why is this so powerful? Because most people don't fully feel heard in disagreements, when you demonstrate that you've actually listened, and it's really key that you do actually listen and that you use your energy to be present in the moment, you've understood their perspective. And what that does is it lowers the emotional temperature of the conversation. And they're much more likely to be open to hearing your perspective, and they're more likely to approach the conversation being calm. And what you're doing is you're literally removing the emotional charge from the conversation. Strategy number 3, find the grain of truth. And this is something that most people won't tell you. And even if, and this feels like it's taken up so much of our kind of mental fortitude, even if you think someone is mostly wrong, they're actually right about something. And your job is to find that grain of truth, to put aside your ego to one side and acknowledge that. So you might say something like, you know what, you're absolutely right about the timeline being tight. And that's a real concern to me too. And then you'll see what happens. Again, their defense drops because you've validated a part of their perspective and they feel validated. And that doesn't mean that you're agreeing with everything by finding that grain of truth. You're just showing intellectual humility here. And that makes people much more willing to listen to your perspective. It now feels like a dialogue, and it feels like that you're now part of the same team. So our role in these conversations is to try and find that common ground. Strategy 4, ask better questions. Think of yourself as like a coach. So instead of jumping into defending your situation, get curious about theirs. So you might ask questions like, what would need to be true for this to work? What do you foresee being the risks with this approach? What are some of the trade-offs that we might need to consider? If you were in my position, how would you handle this? And these questions do two things. They give you valuable information about what you might have missed, but they also make the other person feel like a collaborator rather than an opponent. So you're trying to understand their motivations and their desires, and it's great information. So the goal isn't about winning the argument, it's about to try and find the best solution together. Strategy number 5. This is the bridge response. This is how you transition from listening to sharing your perspective without creating conflict. So you might say something like, I really appreciate you sharing that perspective. Here's how I see it. Let me know how you think this lands. Or, that's a valid concern. Let me share why I think we could address this together. The key is the bridge phrase. You're acknowledging their input before you're presenting your view. And people might think that this is manipulation, but really this is just about human psychology. Humans want to feel heard before you start to give your perspective. So what you're showing here is that you can hold two perspectives simultaneously, your perspective and their perspective. And this is exactly what high performers do. So next time someone disagrees with you, remember, press the pause button, show them the mirror, try and find the grain of truth, be the coach and ask better questions, and bridge your response. And if you do this consistently, and by the way, this does take a lot of practice, and you can go and practice this in real low stakes situations, you'll be amazed how this transforms the conversations that you're with, whether that's from a personal perspective, with your family, with colleagues, in any type of scenario. Let me know how you get on with this.